What's going on, farmers? It's a great day to be in the shop. There's a lot of intermittent rain and thunderstorms going on this weekend here in Northwest Indiana, and it's in commercial right now, but I have Fast Ford or the Ford Fest playing on the TV. It's time to install these bad dogs Team Z lower torque box replacements. And as what seems usual, it's been a few weeks since I've uploaded my last video. I spent some time on vacation and went to Singapore. That's a city-state country, so there's not. I didn't get to see much countryside there, but as a city, it's a super nice place. And in conjunction with exploring Singapore, I also checked out my first F1 race, and I tell you, that's not really a race, it's a party with a race as entertainment. So at the end I'll throw in some pictures and some race video at the end of the video, so if you wanna, I'll give you a heads up, so that way if you want to stick around and check it out, you can. If not, feel free to click off and watch some other videos. So stick around and we'll get working on these lower torque boxes. Alright everybody, let's jump into it. So with the kit, you get the replacements for your torque box. You get mounting hardware for your lower control arm to these points. You get some reinforcements. You get another reinforcement. There's only one right now because the other one's underneath the car. Then you get the stencil, which isn't the same size as this, but it's close. I'm not sure exactly how to use that. I mean, I'm guessing either stick the bolt through the OEM hole, or maybe install these and then stick a bolt through it all the way through and then put this on. As you can see, I have a spreader in here just because this seemed like it was a little bit pinched. It's hard to tell. It might be like the 16th or something. If you do see me look away every now and again, it's because the race is on TV. So let's get underneath the car and kind of go over some stuff. So as you can see, I still have some floorboard stuff missing. Now, I think you can do this install without doing anything to the floorboards other than removing the torque box from the floorboard. So, like here I have some holes in the floorboard. Well, that's where the torque box actually was pinch welded to the floorboard. So those points you're gonna have to, you're gonna have some work there to do, unless you just cut it off and leave it attached to the floorboard. Basically what you do once you get ready to do this is you just start cutting stuff out. It's not exactly I don't know what the word is I'm looking for, but it's a pain in the butt because you end up piecing this thing out in so many pieces, and then it's got pinch welds on the rocker right here, and then some of it can't get to. So basically you just start cutting stuff out, and you're gonna need to get the rocker cleaned up. This piece here, it goes underneath where your seat bulkhead is, and let's see if we can get some better lighting on this. can see here, your floorboard normally comes in sandwich, you know, as the outer sandwich, outer bread of this whole sandwich, because there's like 3-4 different pieces that are sandwiched in here and pinch welded. And one of those slices or pieces of metal is the lower torque box. Now you can cut it all the way back to this bulkhead and then just, you know, grind it down and leave it, just because the floorboard from about here over was so thin and rusty and nasty. I just ended up cutting that piece off because I have the pieces on the inside that I welded, so it's still there, still one, you know, still a floorboard, but it's just got the nasty stuff removed. And then I'll come back, and when I get all this figured out, I'll clean all this up and just weld it all together so that way it looks better. But I'm going to remove this piece that's of the lower torque box that's tacked in all this stuff. Let's see, there's this clip. I don't know if it comes through in the video. It's all cramped down here. It's hard to see what's on the video and point things, but there's this thing that's clipped in the rocker. You got to take that out and pull it out. You know, you got to push it in and then finagle it out. Now, when it comes to the bolt points for the lower control arms, this piece here, this part needs to go, and I also trimmed this back. Let's see. So basically, I mean, you just got to remove all this stuff. Now this piece here, I'm not 100% sure if it goes away or stays. In some of the videos that, or not videos, but in some of the pictures that I found on the internet, this isn't there, or at least I can't tell that it's there. But then some of them I see it is there. So I had kind of worked ahead on the driver's side, and as you can see, I've removed that piece, which is right here, and if it doesn't get removed, it should definitely be welded to the subframe better, because as you can see, there's one pinch weld here, one here, one here, and then there's two on the bottom. So there's what, five welds holding that piece on, and that's what your lower torque arm bolts to. That's pretty crazy. Oh, sorry, 6, because there's one right up here as well. So you got 6 pinch welds holding that thing on. So if you're thinking about doing the torque box versus welding the OEM torque boxes all up, I would definitely suggest going to the replacement torque box, because think about it, if you got to remove all this crap, you have it all welded up, and then you end up tearing them up again, or tearing them out, whatever. You got to remove all that stuff, and if it's welded in that good, then you're just going to make more trouble for yourself. So I mean, the lower torque boxes are fairly cheap, you know, anywhere from $400 to $500, and then your time, unless you pay somebody to install them. But I would say I wouldn't even bother with welding the OEM stuff up. I would just replace it, considering what's all involved in doing this, you're far ahead. So as you can see, I got, you know, the rocker side all cleaned up. Got this cleaned up. There's a rib in this bulkhead. As I was fitting things up, that rib was holding it away from this bulkhead. So I ground that down, and I did try fitting this replacement, the Team Z replacement, in place with this piece installed. And you can see I was trying to use the stencil and whatnot, but I kept having issues right in this area here where it was just too tight. So that, not only that, but also when this is in here, the replacement torque box was further back than this hole, which isn't a big deal. I mean, it probably ends up, it was only maybe, you know, 3/16, quarter inch, something like that. But you definitely don't want to have the torque box not, you know, you definitely don't want a big gap between the torque box plate and this, because that's, you know, right about where your subframe is, your subframe connector. If you were to, you can kind of see it, you know, like right here is where that the mounting, this area right here is where the mount for your lower torque arm, or your lower control arm is. So that bar is going to be pushing right here. So you definitely want to have it solid against the other side of this piece. It kind of brings another point of if you're planning on even doing the cage and subframe connectors, if you're doing an 850 cage, I would just use undercar subframe connectors, because number one, these are more of a pain in the butt to install than the under subframe. And for 850, you just need to have the plates and the floorboards, and it would save so much time if you're wanting to do this. I didn't, you know, this is my first time doing all this, so I thought, you know, through floor would be the best, blah blah. But, you know, and I don't know if there's any kits out there that do it, but man, I sure would like to see a kit. If you're gonna do through floor, I would look for a kit where it actually, instead of just connecting the subframe, the through floor subframe connector to the bulkhead, that it actually comes in and positively attaches to your rear subframe. Because if you look, this thing's only attached with 2 pinch welds here, pinch weld here, and 2 pinch welds on the other side. So really, how am I going to put it? You don't necessarily have a good connection. You know, you're relying on the sheet metal because your weld is on that 6x6 plate. So you're relying on the sheet metal to keep those together. Now I'm going to go ahead, and when I finish all this up, I'm going to fully weld the subframe to the bulkhead, and kind of debating whether to try and maybe grind away the sheet metal or something to get it attached to that plate. But at least with the undercar subframe connectors, you you're definitely connecting to the subframe at front and back. Now, if you think about it, the rear end's going to try and twist up, so it's going to pull back on the upper torque box, and it's going to push in on the rear torque box, which at least it's not trying to pull this bottom side apart. I mean, that would be worse, but just my 2 cents on that aspect. Take it for what you want, but you know, it is what it is, so we're gonna go with it. I got the driver's side lower torque box replacement in place. I'll show you some things of what I've had to do for my installation. You know, everybody's mileage may vary, right? Everybody's in a different situation. Every car is a little different, so these things pertain to my install. Doesn't necessarily mean you may or may not have to do them. So first off, you can see that I had to nibble away at this plate here because it sticks out further than my mini tub, and I'm not sure why that is, but I don't think it really matters that much. I'll probably trim it back a little bit further, probably about 1 inch off the end. That way when I finish out this rocker where I had to cut everything, it'll be a little bit behind that, and then it'll weld up nice and look pretty decent. The one other thing though that I'm not too sure about is, you can see there's a gap between the rocker and the plate there, and it's tighter down at this end and looser over at this end. So I'm thinking about just taking, since this hole's here anyways, taking this and covering it with one piece of like 16 gauge or something like that, and then also wrapping it around here, so that way this is all boxed off and finished out. So no biggie. The other thing is, I don't know if it might be, gosh, it's so tight in here. See, this is hanging a little bit lower, but I guess if I wanted to, I can grind it up some. The other thing is, and it is a difficult area to deal with, but if you can see in there, you got to get the flashlight the right angle, the camera the right angle. So there's a gap between the plate and the bulkhead, but it is nice and tight up against that tab on the subframe to bulkhead sheet metal. So I'm not sure what I'm doing. I was thinking about trying to fill, because it's a good, I don't know, let's see if this 1/8 inch plate will fit in there. Yeah, I mean, it fits partially up in there, but might just say, might just not even bother if I just weld it up. But you can see there's some gappage up there too. I realize this is a tough piece to make and fit everybody's cars, but I'm kind of wondering if it just would have been better to go with the like box style ones that guys make. But this is a real the real what I'm not sure about here is I removed a plate that's pinch welded to the subframe. You can see there's a big gap on this rear side of the torque box. On the front side though of this thing, it's pretty tight. You can see there, it's nice and tight and snug. So kind of wondering if maybe it's better to, I'm on the passenger side now looking at the OEM stuff, if it's better to just remove, because there's some bumps for what's the word, I can't think of the word, but they put some like gusset bumps in here. If you just ground those flat, rewelded this plate to the subframe, then once you remove this back piece here, remove the part that's the top layer of the subframe, because there's that dimple in the subframe here. If you make it this flush with the subframe, I don't know, but so I got some stuff to figure out as far as that goes. But I mean, you can see this 1/8 inch plate fits in there pretty good. That's not where it goes. This one goes right down here. So I might take and just cut some 1/8 inch plate to put in here. Not to mention, you know, that hole right there is beyond the torque box, so that could make welding that on there a pain in the butt. So I might as well just put some plate in there and make sure it doesn't get in the way of my holes, which I did mark, you know, just put a marker through and mark those out. So I'll need, because you need to, I suppose you could, if you have a right drill, you could probably drill it out, but it'd be a pain in the butt. So, you know, I'll need to mark an area to cut the subframe so there's room. And you'll do the same on this side. And you can see I've already got stenciled out. That stencil there is using the OEM location, but I don't know if you can see it well. You can see that where that bolt is that hole, the one with the all thread in it, that's the stock location hole. You can see that it's not centered up, which, you know, you can see that it's, compared to the passenger side, the new holes further forward on the car, so it's further away from the rear end of the car. So I mean, I don't know, it's not an issue really, but it so I think what I'm gonna do is, once I get this torque box installed, I'm going to then take my piece of all thread, stick it through the stock hole, use my stencil, then mark it out again, trim it out, and install the reinforcement piece in. So, because otherwise, you know, sticking ratchet and extension, deep well, whatnot, and they're at an angle is a pain in the butt. So, but before I can even start installing that piece, I need to get my floorboards all wrapped up, I need to get all this stuff wrapped up, just because with this in, with the torque box in, it'll be tough to get some of the spots welded. So I need to get all this buttoned up. You know, I gotta redo this rocker where it connects to the mini tub. I gotta do all that stuff. So I know it's not super informative video, but that's kind of what it takes, what I can tell, to install a replacement torque box. I wish it was as easy as the upper one was, but you know, it is what it is. So here's that plate I was talking about. It's almost like if you could take where this is dimpled maybe and cut it here and around, and then get rid of these bumps, then weld it all into the subframe, grind it nice and smooth. I think that would be the ticket. But if the holes don't match up with where this one is, you know, the holes in the new torque box, if they don't match up, then what's the point of even having this in there in that place, you know? So it all comes down to your car, your scenario, you know, and whose torque box replacement you got. You know, everything's different. So I mean, really, up until the point, you can take everything out up into the point of that plate there, because you definitely don't need anything else, but that might be something you need. So just gotta take your time, you know, get all the crap out that we know we can get rid of, and then try fitting it in, see if you can make it work. You know, maybe if you're gonna take this off, take it off in a manner that, you know, maybe drill 1/8 inch holes in a couple spots, so that way you can line it back up if you wanted to reinstall it, or you know, or do something to where it'll go back in place if you need it to, and take it off in a nice manner. Don't get, you know, a grinder out, start cutting, hacking, or prying heavy on this thing. I mean, when I did it, you know, like I said, there's only 6 points. I have more holes in this than actual spot welds, because there's spots that looked like spot welds, but they weren't actually spot welds. So you can use, you know, like that one there. There's really no spot weld, it just looked like there was. But if you use a spot weld cutter, you know, it makes things way easier taking these things off. Like at the bottom, I had to bend up a little bit, but I knew I wasn't going to reuse that. So, but that's all I got for you guys. If I come up with any tips or tricks as I'm working on this thing, I will definitely make a video on it. But I mean, beyond this point, it's all in your guys' own hands as far as how it goes in your car and what you have. But I mean, once I get it done, I'll make a video, and it might be a little while. I got a lot of stuff going on at work, so they're keeping me pretty busy. But yeah, if the video isn't too long, I'll throw in a couple minutes of some Singapore stuff and Formula One racing stuff. And if you're interested, continue watching. If not, you know, close out and go on to something else. But you know how it goes, guys. Get in the garage, turn that dream into a goal, and crush it. See ya.